What's up you guys, Naesam here, and I finally got around to doing this video. It's going to be a guide for Elemental Shamans and Heroic Tomb of Sargeras, starting in the order of the spellbook, and also I got a new mic, so let me know if it's good or bad. So the content of this guide is going to be essentially your talents, legendaries, and then just basic tips if I have any. So starting with Goroth, very easy boss. I definitely suggest going Ascendance build or gambling if that's what you want. If you don't recognize any of the terms, I definitely suggest checking out stormwithlava.com in the description below. It'll kind of go over the terms for the builds, but I will also have them on the screen. The only one you really want to look into is probably gambling build if you plan on using it. Basically, I would suggest going Ascendance build or gambling build. Try to minimize your movement, and any combination of gloves, belt, ring, and boots is going to be good here. If you don't have those, then just go with whatever sims higher for you on Patchwork. The most important one is probably gloves, though. Demonic Inquisition, I would also recommend going Ascendance or Gambling build. Any combination of gloves, boots, belt, ring, and potentially Sephuz. When I say ring, I mean I have the Twisting Nether. Potentially Sephuz if you can get interrupts. For this boss, you want to be careful with casting Lava Bursts on a target that's going to be using its ability that makes you get Torment from hitting it, because Volcanic Inferno will give you Torment. So swap extra early if you have to, but that's pretty much the only tip I have for this boss. One thing I forgot to mention is that if you happen to go down before the tank goes down, or if a tank dies or something, you can go down into the other realm and drop Earth Elemental, and it will actually stay down there and tank the boss down there and keep aggro on it, and usually it doesn't even die. It doesn't come back up with you, so that's some really good utility you can do as well. Hornetan is a fairly good boss for Ellie. On this boss I recommend going Lightning Rod and Liquid Magma Totem. If you really need boss damage you can go Echo as well, but Liquid Magma Totem is really nice for cycling the ads with Stormkeeper. You can use Legendary Wrists, you can use Sephuz, you can use Gloves, you can use Eye of the Twisting Nether. I wouldn't recommend gambling on this boss at all because there's AoE, but pretty much anything else is okay. The one big thing that you should note is that only really use Sephuz if you can consistently get interrupts on the Wave Menders casting Watery Splash, because that is the only thing on this fight that will proc Sephuz. My biggest tip for this is to use Stormkeeper on the first set of ads and Liquid Magma Totem on the second set of ads. Try not to use them on the same set, or you will just end up killing them too quickly and losing one of your cooldowns. I recommend Stormkeeper in the first one, mostly because that's when everyone else's cooldowns are also up, so Liquid Magma Totem's long duration will not get the full benefit, but Stormkeeper only requires 3 globals to really pull off, so that is Hornetan in a nutshell. Pretty easy boss for Ellie. Sisters of the Moon is kind of a rough boss for us, but I would also recommend Ascendance or Gambling build in this boss if you do not have the legendary gloves. This is a boss where Ice Fury could shine, potentially, if you know how to play it and you're very well versed with it. Otherwise, I would probably stick to Ascendance. Similar to the last couple single target bosses, any combination of gloves, boots, belt, or Eye of the Twisting Nether ring are good here. And just try not to die because there's a lot of things going on and Ellie Shamans kind of just fall over. I don't really have any particular tips for this boss, so we're going to go ahead and move on to Mistress. Mistress Sazine, similar to Hornetan, is a great boss for Ellie Shaman on Heroic. Same talents basically, you want to go Lightning Rod, Liquid Magma Totem, and on this boss I would absolutely use Sephuz if you have it. Wrists are good as well because there's typically 4 or more targets in the area. And otherwise, if you don't have either of those, you can just go with gloves and whatever else you have. But definitely those two are very, very, very good choices, especially Sephuz, because you can proc it constantly. And similar to Hornetan as well, you want to be cycling your cooldowns. I definitely would not use Liquid Magma Totem on the first set of ads, too. That's kind of just a general rule on an ad fight. If the ads don't last very long, always use Stormkeeper first, and try to separate them. And whenever you're moving, you kind of want to use Earthquake, because you don't really generally use Earthquake on 4 to 7 targets. Use Chain Lightning pretty much strictly. So save your Earthquake for when you're moving in that case, and that's pretty much it, so yeah. So the Desolate Host is another fun boss for Ellie. I recommend Liquid Magma Totem, Lightning Rod again, and you probably want to avoid Wrists on this boss unless you're on the outside, because there's generally only 3 targets. But Sephuz is really good. You can stun the Bone Wardens and interrupt the Priests. But I personally went with gloves and wrists. If I did it again, I wouldn't go with wrists, but that's what I went with. There's not a whole lot of options because it's kind of just another AoE fight. But biggest tips for this boss is if you're on the inside, just use your cooldowns on cooldown. Like you start the pole off with Stormkeeper Liquid Magnet Totem. As soon as you get to Wailing Souls, pop them again, like immediately, even on one target. Because after Wailing Souls, more ads spawn. And then you can AoE them again, because your cooldowns will come back up, because Wailing Souls lasts exactly 1 minute, and Wailing Souls starts 1 minute into the fight. If I remember correctly. I'm hoping I remember this correctly. If you really want to be a Pad Lord, you can start on the dead side, AoE down everything, and then once someone is going to break the bones, this only works on Heroic, by the way. Normal, they don't have shield. Once someone's going to go break the bone shield, you switch sides and go AoE the other ads, and then switch back once they're dead. So if you want to be a Pad Lord, that's one strat for you. And if you're on the living side, just try to maximize your Sephu's uptime with Earthquake, but otherwise there's 4 targets, so you generally just want to spam Chain Lightning. If they have the bone shield up, just Chain Lightning them anyway, and then Earth Shock the boss. Just use that Maelstrom wisely. Maiden of Vigilance, I recommend going Ascendance or Gambling build again. Same legendaries as usual, gloves, belt, boots, ring. And the way you want to be using your cooldowns on this boss is you want to use Ascendance on the pole, like your normal opener, and then use Ascendance with the second transmission phase where she teleports you to the other side of the room, and you get the stacking buff. You get the buff and then pop Ascendance again for maximum damage. This way you don't accidentally lose a use by saving it for the first buff. Unless, of course, you're only going to get one. But that would be a crazy fast kill time, and I don't think anyone getting that fast of a kill time is going to need a guide just yet. So that would be my suggestion for that. It's kind of... this boss is interesting because it's really, really good for Gust of Wind. But at the same time, Wind Rush Totem could be really nice to help people get to either side. But if you have a Druid, just go with Gust of Wind. And when you get the Fell Infusion or Light Infusion, if you're on the wrong side, you can just jump right through the boss. And as long as you get there quick enough, you won't actually give anyone the wrong debuff, or give anyone the bomb. So yeah, it's pretty nice for that, because as long as you go quick enough, it won't actually do it. So Fallen Avatar is kind of a rough boss for us because there's so much movement. On this boss, I would recommend going Ascendance or Gambling, potentially. I guess, yeah, Gambling would work too, and if you don't have the gloves, you can try Ice Fury for the movement, but again, I recommend if you're going to use Ice Fury, you want to be very well versed with it, because it's a very challenging spec to play. So if you want to play it, don't let it be your first time playing it in Raid. You'll play it in LFR or on a turning dummy, or like really try and get used to it first. But basically, you want to be using Ascendance if you aren't well versed with that, or if you have gloves. And legendaries are pretty static on this. I'm going to be listing the same ones for most bosses. Gloves, belt, boots, or ring. And the way you choose between these is you sim it, basically. Yeah, if you really want to do Gambling build, the only way you can do that is with boots. But I wouldn't recommend going boots without Gambling unless it happens to sim higher for you, which is pretty rare. Anyways, getting off topic, the way you want to deal with the movement on this boss is right after you pull it, about 5 or 6 seconds later, Unbound Chaos happens, so you don't want to Ascendance on pull. There's a couple ways you can deal with this. You can either just kind of do your rotation, and then after that you do your opener, or you can use Stormkeeper on pull, and like drain the charges, and then after the movement you can move, or you can cast Ascendance and burst right there. Another tip is that the Maiden, you don't really want to kill it, as you probably know if you're on that boss, but Flame Shocking it is generally okay, unless it gets really low. If it gets really low, you want to stop, because your Flame Shock does hit pretty hard, especially if you have tier 20. But if it's not having any issues dying, which generally it's not going to be unless you have a Warlock padding or something, you want to dot this for the Flame Shock, or for the Lava Burst procs, and yeah, that's pretty much it actually. The last phase, there's a lot of movement, so be careful. Make sure you utilize Ankh if you need to solo soak or something. But yeah, this boss is kind of rough for Ellie, so yeah, just accept the fact that you're going to be low on DPS. So now for the final boss, Kiljaeden. On this boss, I recommend Ascendance or Gambling if you want to gamble. I really didn't like Gambling on this boss. It's worked for some people, so if you really want to try it, then feel free. But I would recommend Ascendance. Again, same legendary combination, gloves, boots, belt, or Eye of the Twisting Nether ring. There's a lot of little things you can do in this boss. So stage 1, you definitely want to save your Stormkeeper for the ads. You're going to get the reflections. You're going to be 3 of them on top of the boss, assuming your guild does this strat, but pretty much every guild does. Because that's perfect for Stormkeeper Chain Lightning. You can just Ascendance on pole unless you're required to soak something. Generally, the healers are expected to soak the first Armageddon and maybe a couple DPS. So you shouldn't have to soak there. So you can kind of just Ascendance on pole, save Stormkeeper for the ads. During the intermission phase, when he's kind of flying around, I recommend you keep Flame Shock on the boss, especially if you have tier 20, so you can get that Fire Alley off cooldown faster. Even if it's not with Fire Alley up with the permanent crit, it still crits sometimes, so it's definitely nice to have on the boss. And you want to try and max your Maelstrom out before he comes back. Just doesn't have to be anytime soon, but like sometime before he lands, you want to have max Maelstrom just for min-maxing potential. Stage 2 is pretty much the same thing. You just save your Stormkeeper for ads. Then the other intermission phase, once you find Illidan, if you can, you want to use Stormkeeper on the ads once they're stacked up. If you have Death Knights, if they aren't stacked, just try and Flame Shock them all. Stun them if you can. Even if that requires dropping Earthquake, it's kind of important they get stunned. But this stage is kind of rough for you. Phase 3, there's no more ads, unfortunately. And there's a lot of movement, so you really got to maximize your potential with the movement. Like, the rift comes out and starts dragging you towards the side. You want to, like, Gust of Wind the other direction, like away from the rift, and then cast as much as you can, and then Ghost Wolf run away, cast as much as you can. Little things like that to try and minimize the amount of movement you're actually doing. But Phase 3 is really rough for LE Shamans, so just do your best and try not to lose all the momentum you got from the ads beforehand. And also, don't get hit by Obelisks, because if you're using Gusts of Wind to minimize movement and you get knocked off by an Obelisk, that'd be really awkward to explain. But yeah, anyways, that is my tips for Kiljaeden. So sorry this took so long to make, I just kind of had a weird situation going on, but hopefully that will be alleviated in the future. I do plan to make a Mythic guide once I'm 9 of 9 Mythic. Some of you guys know my rating situation is a little weird right now, but I should be able to get 9 of 9 Mythic on my Shaman. And once I'm 9 of 9 Mythic, I will make this guide, but for Mythic, as soon as I can. So, thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully this helped you out. I'm sorry for taking so long, because I said I was going to do this like the second week. Now it's been like a month, but whatever. Better late than never, right? So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you guys next time.